Okay, so we'll go ahead and get things rolling. My name is Derek Gramadsky. I'm a second-year poet in the Lit Arts program here. This is Francesca Capone. She's a first-year intermedia artist.
Cross-disciplinary
writer from Lit Arts. We've kind of co-organized with the help of Cole Swenson from Lit Arts and Kira Del Sesto and Kristen Kwasniewski, neither of whom is here, but they all deserve. Is Kristen here? No? Nope. And Kira had to leave, but they were all immensely helpful in giving us this space and helping us set everything up. So a round of applause for them, if you don't mind. Okay. If you were at the last anthology, you have an idea of how this runs down. If you weren't, then I'll give you a quick overview. Basically, it's a night of flash readings. Everything's going to be 5 to 7 minutes. Readers, 5 to 7 minutes. 5 to 7 minutes. I will start waving my arms madly if you go over. And I've got a very precise watch to make sure that time is kept. All right. So we'll start with Matt Colburn, and then we'll move. And before intermission, we've got something interesting tonight. We've got some artists from RISD who have joined us, and hopefully it'll be the first of, I don't know, many fruitful, what would you call them, collaborations between Brown and RISD, and this will only grow. And Francesca will tell you a little bit about that.
This is the launch of visual art being part of the anthology series, and it's sort of a different kind of project. Who's to say how it will continue into the future, but it's been such a great experience working with, I don't know where Minkyung is, but with Chloe Lee, Chi-Hao Yo, and Minkyung Kim, who's in the back with the video camera, so you can all raise your hands. And they created videos that are now in all the living room spaces, which are related. So if you stand in one space, you'll look up to another, and it creates a narrative, as well as the visual art that's just outside of this space, and it relates to all of the texts that the writers who are reading tonight sent them. So it's very much a braided experience, and they will also be presenting a video before the intermission. So this is a launch of hopefully many more artists presenting at Anthology as well. So thank you to Chloe, Chi-Hao, and Minkyung. Okay.
All right, and as I said, we'll kick it off with Matt Colburn.
I'm going first. Eli will be going last. He has a briefcase. I don't know what's in it, but look forward to that. I'm going to read 2 excerpts. April. April liked mangoes. She liked them so much that she would sometimes drive to the grocery store with the specific purpose of buying 1 mango. She also liked music. She liked the sculptural rhythms of songs when they melded with her brain, and she liked it even more how sometimes she could find words in the songs that were important to her. She liked picking all of those songs out and then putting them on playlists when they had a particular theme in common. Then she would order the songs according to some method of which I was not aware. She would spend hours making a playlist, and when it was made, she would only listen to the songs in that order. Then she synced her iPod with all these playlists, and she would listen to the thing when she rode the metro, so she didn't have to pay attention to the travel, and when she went around throughout the day, so she didn't really have to pay attention to the world around her. April also had a thing about lying. She liked it. She would make up stories about her childhood and how everything had occurred in this old Victorian house she said she grew up in. Sometimes her father was an astronaut, other times he was a pastry shop owner or a woodsmith. I never really could keep track. But I didn't tell her that. I kept it going because she was nice enough. I also didn't mind that much when she was a flake because I knew she had her problems. If she wasn't feeling well enough, I said fine and left it alone for a bit, and maybe called her a few days later asking her about her feelings. Now you guys are getting it. I'm all right. I feel well enough. That's nice. If I had to guess, I would probably say you felt well enough. I mean, if I had to guess how you felt right now. Oh, thanks. Well, listen, if you feel well enough, maybe we could go out tonight. We haven't seen each other in a while now, and I'd like to get an update. And then she would say that joke she always made when she wanted things to be clipped, which was, hang up and try again, Michael. So I would call her back and talk to her about her feelings and be sincere and stuff, and then she would give in and we would go out. We went through this cycle a couple of times, and I put up with it well enough, and it was fine. She had her own complaints about me, so I figured we were about equal. But the line got me. She brought up the Victorian house a lot. It was like a tumor. There were so many different stories about her father. And on top of that, the Victorian house got to be pretty extensive. It never changed like her father did, but I could see it the more she told me about it. It was so big. The ceilings must have been 12 feet tall. And the windows, they were red stained glass windows. It bugged me more to think about it when I hadn't seen her for a couple of days, but I guess that was her world and I had mine. I worked as a scheduler for a congressman, and I liked it well enough. April didn't. But April was one of those sappy types. She could have been a social worker, but she was a veterinarian's assistant, so I knew her political views weren't really that developed. I knew it better than her, how it was, the way the world worked. Anyway, her complaints didn't amount to much. I had to be practical, and she could never really take to that for too long. So I went about my job like anyone who has a job has to. I made sure people knew my boss was a busy man accomplishing a hell of a lot, and I let them know how when their meeting got pushed around, it was really a big deal. That's the end of the first excerpt. Second excerpt. There's an argument in between, that's all I'll say. No watch. April stole it. On the metro. Next stop, next stop, next stop, next stop. On the metro. Blue line to Largo Town Center. Blue line to Largo Town Center. Next stop, Pentagon City. Pentagon City, doors opening, doors closing. Blue line to Largo Town Center. Next stop, Pentagon. Next stop, Arlington Cemetery. Next stop, Roslyn. Next stop, Foggy Bottom. Next stop, Farragut West. Next stop, next stop, next stop, next stop. In and out and in. To April, to the metro, to before April. To before April. You met them before her. You met him, the street musician, and before him, you met the veteran. Him, the veteran, he with the ghostly eyes. Eyes no longer white, but a light blue tint in the back of each. And him and you and the metro car. And how do you get to Reagan Airport? And the other man turns away, and everyone turning away, and you and the map, and point and tell. And then sit down a row between you. And then talk, 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 talk. I have to pick up my brother at the airport, he says. Oh, I say. I've been lost in this metro all day. The eyes. Oh, I don't understand this metro, you know. I fought in Vietnam, you know, and I come back, and you expect me to understand this metro. Oh, my mother died last night. Oh, I can't understand this metro. I'm a retired vet, you know. Oh, my mother died last night. Oh, I'm a retired vet, you know. I fought in the war, and they leave me on the street, the government. And it's not right, you know. I served my country. It's not right. I served my country, and I should be able to pay my medical bills. You're right. It's not right. My mother died last night. Tears. Yeah. And we don't need to be fighting this war. I know what it's like for them out there in Iraq. And I know we don't need to be fighting this war. Nod. It's all about oil, you know. Bush and Cheney, they just want oil. You move closer to the row directly behind him. Yeah. My mother died last night. The transfer station. This is your stop. Get off and transfer to the yellow line. Bless your soul. Thank you. Then you wait for him to get off, and you get off too. You see him talking to a guard in the distance as he waves his hands in the air, and you get on the next train. Next up is Mona Awad.
This is a condensed version of a story called The von Furstenberg and I. Despite my better judgment, I'm in the change room wrestling with the von Furstenberg. I've thrown it over my head, and I'm attempting to wedge my arms through the armholes, even though it's got my shoulders and rib cage in a vice grip. The fabric stretched tight over my face so I can't see, and it's blocking my air supply, but I'm doing my best to breathe through twill. This is the moment of deepest despair. This is the moment she always chooses to knock on the door. I can hear the slow approaching clicks of her heels in my spine. 3 light raps on the door with her opal-encrusted knuckles. I brace myself for the sound of her voice, all of my nerve endings like cats ready to pounce. When she speaks, I hear her disdain in my coccyx. How are we doing in here? We. She means me and the von Furstenberg. She saw me out of the corner of her exquisitely lined eye going to the back of the store to retrieve it between the frigid Eileen Fishers and the smug Max's Rias, and she disapproves. She knows the von Furstenberg is a separate entity, that it and I will never be one. Fine, I say. I remain absolutely still, try not to sound breathless, like all is well, just a regular trying on session. Oh, good. You let me know if you need anything. It's true that it's been a while since I've been coveting the von Furstenberg, 3 weeks since I first stood on the other side of her shop window, watching her slip it over a white, nippleless mannequin, looping some ropes of fake pearl around its headless neck. I didn't know it was a von Furstenberg then. I didn't even know what a von Furstenberg was. I only knew it was precisely the sort of dress I dreamed of wearing when I used to eat muffins in the dark and watch Audrey Hepburn movies. I'd make lists of the perfect dresses, and when I saw this one, it was like someone, perhaps even God, had found the list and spun it into existence. Cobalt, form-fitting, with a V in the front and in the back. Cute little bows all down the butt crack like your ass is a present. The sort of dress I'd wish to wear to attend the funeral of my former self, to scatter the ashes of who I was over a cliff's edge. Can I try this on? I asked her. Her eyes opened a little wider, small glimmers of incredulousness like slicks of oil. She looked from the von Furstenberg to me, then back to the von Furstenberg, sizing both of us up. We two? Never we two. Sighing, she led me to a change room, rearranging sidelines as she went. Insect hair clips, bagalinis, peacock scarves, so it wasn't a totally wasted trip. And then the whole time I was in there being asphyxiated by the von Furstenberg, I felt the fact of her clicking on the other side of the door, pretending to straighten the multi-tiered display of shoelets patterned with Renaissance paintings, waiting for me to admit defeat, come to my senses. Come on. Today, though, I'm determined to prove her wrong. Today, I won't come out of the change room, let her snatch the mangled von Furstenberg from me, ask me, how did we do? As if she did not know how we did. As if she didn't already have the steamer turned on and ready to smooth out the creases of my failed struggle, a task she always undertakes with overdone tenderness. Then, before I'm even out of the store, she'll pointedly press a damp rag all over the von Furstenberg, presumably to get rid of the slashes of secret I leave behind. But those stains are always there when I come back. That's how I know it's all for show. Like, look what you do, fat girl. Can't you take no for an answer? The von Furstenberg doesn't want you. Knock, knock. Still all right in there? Great, I say. And I'm tugging so hard on the back zipper, my tongue is lolling out of my mouth like I'm dead in a cartoon. But I feel it going up, higher than it ever has before. And it's not a mirage, it fits, it's on, it's miraculous. And even though I'm panting, my hair in disarray from the struggle, I see we look immortal. I'm just thinking how I'll wear it out of the store, picturing how I'll pull back the curtain in the von Furstenberg, turn my zippered back to her and say, all casual, over my shoulder, cut the tag, please. Maybe I'll even ask for a bag for my old dress. Would she mind terribly putting my old dress in a bag? And that's when I see the jagged rip down the side seam. Maybe I couldn't hear the ripping over the sound of my own grunts. That happened once before with the flesh-colored Terra Jarmon. It was impossibly tight when I bought it, and then I was out one day walking, insisting, and it suddenly wasn't. It suddenly felt easy breezy, beautifully loose. I didn't understand it until I caught a glimpse of myself in the reflective glass of an office building and saw the slashes on either hip. Knock, knock. We sure we're still doing okay in there. Her voice as a rat who insists on hitting its head again and again against the maze wall gets taken out of the maze. It gets escorted out, politely but firmly, by mall security. I don't know how long I've been sitting here, half in and half out of the von Furstenberg, the pull tab in the damp cave of my fist. My old dress, the one I thought I'd never have to wear again, lies like a jilted lover in the corner. I hear her clicking not too far off, pretending to rearrange sidelines, sequined hair clips shaped like butterflies, purses shaped like swans, perfumes that make you smell like very specific desserts, rains, and pieces of music. I could just put my old dress on over the von Furstenberg, go to the cashier, explain, offer to pay, but the truth, as she well knows, is that even if it did fit, I cannot afford the von Furstenberg. I have this terrible image of her coming in here with the jaws of life tucked under her arm, ash blonde tendrils escaping from her chignon as she attempts to wrench me out of the von Furstenberg. How the give of my flesh will be abhorrent to her hands, but not half as abhorrent as her hands will be to my flesh. Other customers will look on as they pass by the open door like I'm a car crash in the opposite lane. Or maybe I could learn to live like this. As I sit here, I can already feel myself oozing out of the von Furstenberg, oozing from the V in front and the V in back, the volume of my ass threatening to crack the little bows along the fault line. And I begin to think, maybe this is it. Maybe this is the only way out. Maybe if I wait long enough, if I'm patient, I'll just ooze out. First the fat, then maybe we'll find a way to coax out the organs. Some organs I won't even need, like my appendix. Of course, even if we leave some things like my appendix behind, it'll be a slow process. Slow in terms of biological time, but not if you think, say, geologically, like in ages. I'm patient. Thank you. Thanks. Next up is Alice Santana with translations by Kit Schluter.
Hi, good night. Well, first of all, I just want to thank very much to Cole Swinson, Francesca Capone, and Kit Schluter. I'll read it in Portuguese, and Kit will read it in English. A água transbordava da pia para lavar bem lavadas as cerejas. Fora de época, cara demais. Com os fones ouvia a respiração alta. Na cozinha de uma estranha. Nota que os anéis mais parecem engrenagens que anéis. As engrenagens nos dedos, uma máquina. Fecha os olhos por alguns minutos, sente a água molhando o aço, a fruta, enferrujar as cerejas, tão caras. A boca, um risco que quase sorri. A distração do metal gelado na casca, não sabe se o que o ouve é o eco ou sua própria voz distante. A dona da casa pergunta se está cantando. Por que está cantando tão cedo? Achava que estivesse muda, a respiração alta.
The water flooded out of the sink to wash the cherries well washed, out of season, too expensive. With headphones on, she listens to the loud breathing in the kitchen of a stranger, notices that her rings seem more like gears than rings. The gears on her fingers a machine. Closes her eyes for a few minutes, feels the water washing over the steel, the fruit, the cherries rusting, so expensive. The mouth an almost smiling line. The distraction of the cold metal against the peel. She doesn't know if what she's hearing is an echo or her own voice far away. Her host asks if she is singing. Singing, why so early? She thought she was being quiet, the loud breathing.
Ausência. Tenho-te escrito com calma, cartas em um caderno azul. Arranco da espiral e não posto, por preguiça ou nem morta. Tenho medo da espera. Durante dias ou semanas, um animal horrível, espécie de raposa, vai me perseguir por dentro. Ou serei eu mesma, um rato, a me roer, enquanto a resposta não chega. Perco muito tempo tentando dar nomes aos bichos que sobem a cortina do quarto.
Absence. I've been writing you calmly letters in a blue notebook. I tear them from the spiral and don't mail them out of laziness, not over my dead body. I'm afraid of waiting for weeks or days. A horrible animal, a kind of fox, stalks me inside myself, or will be me, a rat, nibbling myself while the reply doesn't arrive. I waste so much time trying to name the creatures that climb up the bedroom's curtains.
Deitado com o dedo na boca, o sorriso invertido, curvado como uma montanha. A pele da perna, uma cédula, gasta e seca. Todos os dias rigorosamente iguais. Banheiro, visitas, ampolas de sangue. Às vezes tem mordomias, como um pedaço de pão ou uma fruta. Doces, nem pensar. Da janela passa uma nuvem de carros. Um táxi amarelo convida a ir a qualquer lugar, sem previsão de alta. O táxi é mais uma miragem, um filme. Na televisão, aquele programa da TV 5 sobre casas em Paris sem saneamento. Pessoas que moram hoje, você acredita, em quartos sem janelas, apartamentos no 6º andar sem elevador. Como será que fazem para subir com a água? Não tomam banho naturalmente. Depois se cansa da conversa. A nuvem se torna mais espessa. Na hora do rush, o táxi não tem serventia, se não puder tomar o caminho que leva ao ponto mais alto, de onde se vê a curvatura da terra.
Lying down with thumb in mouth, the smile upside down, curved like a mountain. The skin of the leg, paper money, worn and dry. Every day, rigorously similar. Bathroom, visitors, drawing blood. Sometimes a treat is doled out like a chunk of bread or a fruit. But candy, don't even think about it. In the window, a cloud of cars passes by. A yellow taxi is an invitation to go anywhere at all. No idea when the hospital discharge will come. The taxi is more of a mirage, or a movie on TV, that show on TV5 about houses in Paris with no sanitation. People living today, can you believe it, in rooms without windows, apartments on the 6th floor without elevators. How do they get upstairs without water? They don't take baths, naturally. After this, the conversation gets tiresome. The cloud grows thicker. At rush hour, the taxi is good for nothing if it doesn't take the path that leads to the highest point from which the curve of the earth can be seen. And next up we have Chi Hao Yo, Chloe Lee, and Minghyung Kim.
Multimedia presentation. Close to this one. I might need a bit of light to read my script. Thank you. So I thought I would explain a little bit about a process of how we arrived at the visuals that you saw outside and also the film that you're about to see. Our design for the show is inspired by the significant number of stories that occur in transitory spaces and how that speaks to the theme of disorientation. Physically, the characters in the story are traversing in space to get to their destination. Meanwhile, the characters are experiencing a psychological journey when they constantly need to reorient themselves in relation to the changing signs and signals to make sense of the world in flux. Having this in mind, we spent some time at the site, and we noticed that the structure and the architecture of the Grenoff has a lot of blind spots where you can't have a clear vantage point of the entire building, even though it's very open in terms of the structure. So to respond to the concept of disorientation, we designed the space so that visitors will need to travel through the whole building in order to understand the narrative. So as you've seen outside, this is our visual response. And each small projector at the landing of each floor represents a fragment of the story. Starting from the bottom floor, the text indicates the location of the story, moving on to the second floor where the first character is introduced, followed by the third floor that indicates the relationship of the first character and the second character in the floor above. Finally, the top floor projector has a quote to clue the viewer into the interaction between characters. When visitors climb up the stairs, the narrative will emerge as a whole. Each monitor is assigned a color that corresponds with the writer as a way to represent each author's point of view. To reflect the element of chance encounters, we used a programming language called processing to randomize and recombine each author's writing to create endless permutations, new stories from existing parts. So in addition to the projectors, we also designed the corridor wall adjacent to the reading room just outside. Physically, the wall is on the periphery of the main path of the staircase. Therefore, conceptually, we wanted the design to reflect the supplemental nature of this space. The peripheral elements of the story to us were secondary information, such as certain objects, people, and landmarks in the writing. We render these items like signage being passed by when you're driving in a car. In contrast to the official language of most icons and landmarks, the visual language here is quite idiosyncratic and highly interpretive, since they're drawn from our memories of traversing through the passages and encountering these items only as text. And to further the concept of disorientation and converging perspectives, we made 4 mini-films for tonight. Our inquiry of the film is the relationship between space, sound, and the act of traversing. And much like a book that is a structure that supports the movement of reading, space is a structure that gives context to the spoken word. The film experiments with sound when it's out of alignment with its natural habitat. In this ambiguous soundscape, we can perhaps gain a new understanding of sights that we thought we once knew so well. So the film is going to be 6 minutes, and to give you a clue of the first film, you'll be hearing Foucault.
So perhaps we can have the lights down.
Il y a donc des pays sans lieu et des histoires sans chronologie, des cités, des planètes, des continents, des univers dont il serait bien impossible de relever la trace sur aucune carte ni dans aucun ciel, tout simplement parce qu'ils n'appartiennent à aucun espace. Sans doute, ces cités, ces continents, ces planètes sont-ils nés, comme on dit, dans la tête des hommes, ou à vrai dire, dans l'interstice de leurs mots, dans l'épaisseur de leurs récits, ou encore dans le lieu sans lieu de leurs rêves, dans le vide de leur cœur. Bref, c'est la douceur des utopies. Pourtant, je crois qu'il y a, et ceci dans toute société, des utopies qui ont un lieu précis et réel, un lieu qu'on peut situer sur une carte, des utopies qui ont un temps déterminé, un temps qu'on peut fixer et mesurer selon le calendrier de tous les jours. Il est bien probable que chaque groupe humain, quel qu'il soit, découpe dans l'espace qu'il occupe, où il vit réellement, où il travaille, des lieux utopiques, et dans le temps où il s'affaire, des moments uchroniques. Voici ce que je veux dire. On ne vit pas dans un espace neutre et blanc, on ne vit pas, on ne meurt pas, on n'aime pas.
It's really hot again today, isn't it?
Yes, but I don't think it's as hot as yesterday.
Probably not, but I can't stand this heat anymore.
Do you know what the weather's going to be like tomorrow?
It's going to be hot again, unfortunately.
Well, it's not that hot. Where I come from, it can be much hotter.
Where do you come from?
I'm from Texas.
What's the weather like in Texas?
Well, it's a big state and the weather varies from one place to another.
No one's doing anything about tax havens. No one's doing anything about the political affiliations and financial affiliations of the Conservative Party. So until people start addressing things that are actually real, why wouldn't I be facetious? Why would I take it seriously? Why would I encourage a constituency of young people that are absolutely indifferent to vote? Why would we? Aren't you bored? Aren't you more bored than anyone? Ain't you been talking to them year after year, listening to their lies, their nonsense? Then it's this one gets in, then it's that one gets in. But the problem continues. Why are we going to continue to contribute to this facade?
I'm surprised you can be facetious when you're that angry about it.
Yeah, I'm angry. I am angry. Because for me it's real. Because for me it's not just some peripheral thing that I turn up once in a while to a church fete for. For me, this is what I come from. This is what I care about.
Do you see any hope?
Remember that? Yeah, totally. There's going to be a revolution. It's totally going to happen. I think not only I ain't got a flicker of doubt. This is the end. This is time to wake up. I remember I see you in that programme where you look at your ancestors and you saw that when your grandmother had to brass herself or got fucked over by the aristocrats who ran her gaff, you cried because you knew that it was unfair and unjust. And that was, what was that, a century ago? That's happening to people now. I just come from a woman who's being treated like that. I've just been talking to a woman today who's being treated like that. So if we can engage that feeling, instead of some moment of lachrymose sentimentality trotted out on the TV for people to pour over emotional porn, if we can engage that feeling and change things, why wouldn't we? Why is that naive? Why is that not my right because I'm an actor? I mean, I've taken the right. I don't need the right from you. I don't need the right from anybody. I'm taking it.
I'm going to show you around. We've been doing some terraforming around here. Up here we've got a scale model of the area that we're actually building. So if you look at it from this angle, you have the source of the river, and this follows down the mountain. This is a very, very small scale. There's some lore here, perhaps some ideas. Perhaps the people of this canyon or valley worship the river. We've got the Great Bridge here, and this joins Albanthus and Aloria, which are the two main cities. And there's various lore behind this. There was a war between the two factions over the land in the middle, the very fertile land, of which is now owned by a town called Taran. And we've got a war memorial here to commemorate the war between the two factions who are now at peace. I wanted to put in kind of a hawk statue. You have one hawk on each side of the river as you go out, possibly to the sea. We haven't decided yet. And there'd also be a small valley down here going to a town called Hilva, which is the only access point for Parliament, which is a small building or congregant of people and buildings who, or where the two factions meet at sometimes to discuss law and the future of the land. This is all made with Voxel Sniper plugin. You might have heard of that before.
Okay. Mr. Ben, you're up.
I can't cover my hands with my mind anymore. I jerk off because I want my mouth used to the idea, listening, disparaging the soft or weak, narrow, focusing heart breathe. She told me to stop. What have I given that has stopped being? The only time I could talk about the storm in a poem was when I realized that the pine tree you held me under after I puked in your car was not there anymore, and that it could resemble a cross if I made it disappear in the light, a circumstance, or an antidote for one. Laura asked me if I was gay, and I remembered you said that I wasn't, but I did not tell her this. I am interested in verbs that transmit the human echo, but none of them actually do this, even though you always stand before me in your perfect availability and tell me I will always be stronger than I will ever appear to be. I am afraid to talk, or my fear is compartmentalized in a way that I don't notice my fear or don't know how to feel my fear that would compel me to talk. I can't cover my mind with my hands anymore. We were playing Scrabble in the dark with a pill press. I just watched you do it to me. I think maybe I liked it. A plane flew past and God thought of me. The loop is a feeling of thwart. This was before I could drive. I opened the kitchen window and crawled out. Then I went in the back door and let myself out the window again in a puritanical gesture of condolences for the body where high schools grow, throwing the feeder as far. Even though I've had your Coca-Cola pie and cherry pizza, it changes nothing, you son of a bitch. I love you, but you are this son of a bitch. You held him in the hallway when Steve's dad died, and he looked away from his shoulder where you had put your hand. I ran into you at the water fountain, and you told me death takes something from you and puts it somewhere, but it will also give you things like cockatiels. You called me at the grocery store and told me you are living in the past of some future you will never have, but I misheard you. I thought you said you were living in the past of some future you will have. I began to feel that I wanted to change the future for a past I never had, or to talk to it, and that a transactional view of it would probably require a dialogue with the dead, or with those who die in it, who are alive and feel like talking in terms of it. I never want to work again. You had to repeat it to me. One time, me and Laura found a wounded duck at Walmart. We caged it, put my dog in the backyard, and brought the cage in the house. And Laura cried because it was deep in its silence in an affectionate way. So I stayed outside listening. I hid fried chicken everywhere. I watched her brush her hair by the cage. In the morning, we brought it to the pound and had sex. She was affectionate in her quiet way, listening, reposed, scrubbing the potato, and she will never forgive me. Even though she told me that she will always enjoy the pleasures of her own body. Where am I? What does my body mean? I am in emergency, but I don't know for whom. To whom am I delivered? A man put his arm in another man on the carousel, and they began to talk to me about I-ams in a war of pines. They don't even call it war. It will never be done. How is it that I am molested when I know Katie was my date and she only already left because I was scared I was gay on the carousel, not because I lose control of my perspective of the world, but because it was inside me barbarously slow. I went past the end of the world with Laura to go to the Redfish Cup. She called me a monster, then she let me drink beer while she drove. She told me her aunt had recovered, having driven into her own house deeply high one time to have this troubled kid who settled into a ranch and kids and married an offshore worker, but who went back to stripping. They hold up the fish in teams in front of the camera. We walked the gravel drinking. The red fish they hold up are too big to eat, filled with worms and parasites, but they are beautiful, who left a man she loved. She trembles with solution, and a breast floats up, or a starling wearing a child. It is I who is self-directed, but I want to have sex with the gravel if it would mean anything about treading. I want to be a mine without miners, or a preference that pitches its mouth at you. Nathan cannot talk about himself, and he has not stopped drinking, yet I do not think he was ever self-destructive, or never betrayed these feelings to anyone, or hid them from himself. I am at a crossroads, and at one end is the generalization. The generalization is a suspect filled with grief who tells you to read the news, inspiring across the country a rash of gimmick and a confusion of voices, of agents of perseveration. Do you have this shade? Give it to me. You better, a poet like you. I slapped the back of my head again, as if the bird flew from my own hand. This is the form of my face. I love you. You must accept these photographs. In my head, which is often yeasty, it spurts inside vanishing and it hurts me. Think the sound of my first sheep, and I will never forget you. In my mind, Jean-Paul is an artifact because he smokes with 7, a glamourist and a muscular stoner who taught me the 16-step sequence as a 2-beat bar. Jean-Paul told me he wears a Def Jam shirt, which you must understand is important only if you are to understand these sequences falter beautifully, shaping a music where I remember I took 100 milligrams of sand and someone saying we dropped 2 bombs on Japan because we didn't have 3. Bombs make me drink inside you. I remember going to the zoo with you, which was an accident against the beginning of forgetting. I drank all of the sauce on the bars and how the birds glowed, but then you began to talk to me as my administrator, one who disliked his job, terrified of the wrath it would incur. When I call out to Israel, I see bodies slip off the bicycle. That's when I always come. It is not really a theocracy, it's just this place that is going to blow up. Maybe it should. It makes me sad. I love medieval exegesis in school, but I would burn it down if it meant anything to the kids who sit in the elevator protesting psychosis. The mouth is a place of attempt. Slip is a verb because I put the word back in the mouth. If I were deaf, or if someone else read the poem to me, facing us in a wall of high-energy white noise, we would feel the compression of endlessly circular life to take the word out again. I assemble chickens in your dreams, dryer turning, my widow's walk, my figure 8. I wore earplugs inside my earmuffs before I even reached for the phone to hold you, scathing my strange duck body. You keep calling me that. I wanted to knock your teeth out. My mom always sounded somewhere else. School itself schools, screwing into the birch, which probably expresses more of an ideology than I would care for her ever to admit into silence like Rilke. Why are you dreaming about my girlfriend? See, there's that potato again. It makes me cry. I become daughters. Pardon me.
Next up is V Manuscript. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Kit is back again. So Kit is up next, and then V Manuscript. Sorry about that.
I'm not ashamed to ask for like mood lighting or something. Now alone, I've lost access to that redemptive escape. The open and the concealed have swapped spirits, and by law, you are on a high shelf of transition, looking down on the upcast eyes of the city, milked over with the glaucous stuff of in-between grounds. And by law, this can't be sadness, but that something out at the point where adjectives fail. I don't know what to call it. Unwilling? My attention's drift to spaces that feel at first aesthetically conservative, though you have given me this extension of your person, and within it I recognize, beneath the novelty, the shapes I first learned to inhabit. Lines, straight or arcing, simple forms like triangles, quadrilaterals, hexagons, etc. And inside, perspective too still follows its old patterns. What is far is bluer, which is to say that space is the same as ever, and this time it's not a matter of sight, but of touch. But remember, you are only here as a process, as a space a material forced out of its native structures can return to when the stakes get raised, even one notch too high. But the point is to lock your jaw, glass and screen, to make them less like windows, portals less confessional, to slant their roofs and ceiling, be they sinking or rising through canals of futurity with loss as peripheral banks. Farewell and goodbye. Between these words, a choice, quantities of desire, reputations, whether to rear up image or flesh, or if you don't believe my mistrust, watch the imitation spring crying snow on the shoots. And my choice to view hindsight as pedagogical has locked me out of your inclusivity blueprint, but into our already superabundant hoarding chamber where joy becomes indistinct and more meaningful, a vague ease in roundabout yet concrete forms. So I grow this warm counterpart to time's accordion, by turns inert and volatile. You turn away when you smile. It's infectious, that modesty in this light, but happiness too can be difficult to trust outdoors. Time and again, without a roof, it floats away. And the absence is the absence of some voice. And in this absence, there is no temperature, since it is only for the reunion of a thing and itself that temperature appears, and later time's unfolding makes itself felt. And to make sense of such questions, I imagine that my face is a face identical to yours. The same goes for finding you, but I have to take in that burning aroma the day when the sky spreads out and the stars fall into the city. Some metal, one of your eyes, a certain light will have to fall into my hands. One way or another, I will have to know what became of you and what became of the fog, to listen to your words and what you say. I do not know what I would give. I am dying to touch with you the end of things. And on another earth, the parents they love you, and on another earth, the parents who love you are walls. There we go. Beyond them, you can see the city they gave you. At my edges, you are lonely. Let me blur them. Break, fissure, rupture, urethra, caption, nimbus, mackerel, opus, sanctus, rage, bleat, now, frozen, like, prolonging jaw. They gave you no city. Let me blur them. Voice upset, voice centered, layman, abstract, another body, unforeseen plastic, freight, heat, astringent, committal, narrative, hope. They gave you no city. Let me blur them. Salmonella, healthy desire, content, imprévu, because elsewhere no, sequence, derision, cancellation, bipolar, jokes, sleep, nard, burial. Let me blur them, because good as they've been to you, they gave you no city. Breakage, point, return, confess, soak, loin, croak, moan, pure joy, light because, unanimous, forge, agree, forget. You knew that's how it would end, agree, forget, but I didn't mean to write that there. It was you who meant me to. And once the traces of significant events appear to have been swept away, where your vision and its blankness wait around the corner, in the shadow of the rain that widens more gradually than the smoke of images here left unchosen for the vagueness of their Fibonaccian expansion, where I learn a lesson, where I undergo changes imperceptible until I return to the foraged nest, where I find myself begging you to return to the habits by which you were once identifiable, where I lurch apprehensively toward our friends whom I mistrust for their capacity to steal you, whom I love, by keeping still. I know, I hope to change and not waver beneath the impossibility of remaining tangible, if only the heart, as a fruit, were yours to consume. Please welcome V Manuscript.
Check, 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 check. 3 seconds. Gloom, a tickling cycle, but her fine, midnight, white clit she-body stiffens. My beloved she of my bosom sucking, always upskirt with bites crease her cold hands, my motive warm room tit bottom, her whose lips and glasses fragile never remembers nursing. Journal sometimes for a red minute, then stop. She, imitation, confess, Puritan, purple night of a nowhere Puritan, when the person, weeping, memory, inability, we would, Paisley begin rather parsnip to climax at a horrible glass midnight. Yes, illegal bruises, thin piss swills straight child, yet cannot off-bulb, permissible, your glowing fuck sister, too glowing, hot pulse, pity, hiss, like never, nausea, dripping, what was woman enough, death acts, 2 virgins, for red is the color of childhood, I can't, I shouldn't, I can't, crawling, I shouldn't, crawling, I can't, crawling, I shouldn't, can't, I crawling, I shouldn't. Scribble worship onto your notepad, excuse femininity, injure governess like hysterical, stuck to hell, apodictic, satanic inscription, lipstick pencil, ballerina, music box, mocking, almost orgasm, headstrong, writing, bloody-minded, and anti-breeder. My clairvoyant revisionism, neo-grotesque, sans serif, sitting down near the merits of anointment. God is watching. Let the orifice explorers explain. Sometimes I think I am dying, yet onward with a perfect little fever and a self-congratulatory Sadian respect for the criminal, there is always time later for unraveling. Unravelers. Stop. Cora's boldness. She hated the science of asking which words as if they mattered. We laughed aloud after lying down and without fear, at least not in her eyes. The only book, you're crazy. And afterward, whether they ought to honor the oath of publishing, it was to be decided in the morning. I cannot grant permission while weeping. Maybe she knows best, willing and able, unwilling and able, willing and unable, unwilling and unable. And was it not okay to go mad? Was indeed. Nor was one way any worse than another. I almost threw you into the cactuses, I avow. To which she replies, life is 1 billion years old. I always keep some art unfinished because it keeps me from suicide. What's your worth to society? Desire ebbs and flows, both in its potency and its referent. total ambivalence, singles, phrase conjuring, fanatic, hole digging, burial, forked tongue, phonetics. I'm a fake, a cheat, and a thief. Pass on, having prayed, swift runner. She's violent, your short-waisted narcissus. I remember you there, but I don't remember me. Shed, snake, your wild force. Quit that already, and some love utterance becomes the on button. Animal, disregard, halcyonic odor, young chariot. Poisoned purse in the abstract, motor car en route to the Winnipeg Ballet, purloin and artifice. Angels often feel emptiness, someone whispered. Great creation has neither ceremony nor chance. She, exemplary, the what in I, master, drunkenness. What to feel decent about. Herein lies the secret of the stammerer. And bleed. Why hide vice?
Surprise, mortality, surprise. I'll be an hexagon, and plus you must be childlike. Think of me in a blush-colored apartment. Why sober, doubly others, my absolute gliding loneliness. My rings heavy, she admire, and she, and not so lone and alone, all things please nature, sickness, destroy me through edification. Shit hours are our breath, another eye, not always, can't appreciate this without the very finite lost, all letters, I must convey this. Dust, reason, pure, lost, definition and semantic drift. Lost, I'm no master of language. Antithetically, I'm quite submissive to it. Lost, alone, Rambulous, somnambule, bulletproof habit, TT, far-footed, TTH, T-like hysterical, like hysterical LLL stuck to LLL. Hell word, hell word, world of woman, woman of world, woman, wound, woman, wound, wound, wind. Windy on any eye miracle dust have see us kiss wound kissed woo on wound non wound non NNNH wound non tastes like coffee like coffee glow or cold coffee gorgeous or shaven blue under the fury of literature from the pain I destroyed the de-story pain destroy pain the story pain de-story